So, welcome to the first fly on the wall conversation. So, Matt, this is an idea that I've had for a little while now, and it's to have these short, specific conversations with industry professionals like yourself and just getting insights into their process and thinking before they switch their computers on. I just think that it's something where a lot of valuable stuff lies and where all great ideas are born. So I think it'd just be really valuable for students or even people already in the industry just to hear how different artists and designers start their projects, what goes through their mind, and what tools they use to extract these ideas in the first place. So today's discussion is going to be all about ideation and sketching. And I couldn't have thought of a better guest to kick things off than yourself. You're an industry heavyweight. You're a modern day Ron Cobb, veteran concept designer. You've contributed to films and TV shows like Alien Romulus, The Batman, Rogue One, Last Jedi, Rise of Skywalker, Acolyte, Halo, Prometheus, and even upcoming Project Hail Mary. And just in case people listening didn't know, Matt is the man behind the iconic Corbelin and the Echo Probe for Romulus. So Matt, welcome and thanks for coming on to have a chat with me.
Oh, Nick, what an intro. Be still my beating ego. You're killing me.
It's quite a list. And you're also like the only person I know that actually has a written testimonial from Ridley Scott. So that's pretty impressive.
Yeah. I haven't posted that one yet. I can't bring myself to do that.
Look, so I've known you for a while, but I have always wanted to pick your brains a little bit more about your ideation process. And I think a good question just to kick things off is just to ask you, what is the last thing you sketched in your sketchbook?
An Akira style bike last week. I'm having a bit of downtime, so I've always wanted to mash up an Akira bike with a speeder bike. I did a couple of Pantone marker sketches last week.
Yeah, I saw those. They were super nice. Like, what's nice looking at like the first, the illustrations, the turntable images that you did. But then I always love swiping across because you always include those sketches, and it's like that side view. It always keeps, like, you can see the integrity of the design is in those first few sketches. So is that something that you always do, like for all projects, professional, personal?
Pretty much. I'd say less so with interiors because you're an architect, so you know better than me that finding that personality is probably harder with a silhouette in an interior. But with a prop or a vehicle, which is its own isolated object, I'm still really taken back how many problems you can solve with that first silhouette if you get it right there and you find your personality in that. I'm really glad you like and you find those images I post, because I think, like all of us, I post work and I'm posting professional work, and I always think it's really sort of intimidating just to post the finished render without the process, because you kind of suggest to people that that's where you arrived and that's kind of the glory moment of having all that stuff. But there's all this thinking that goes beforehand. So I think it's really, I'm trying to do that more and more, post those kind of sketches. I mean, if I'm not doing it in my sketchbook, I'll be doing it in Photoshop. It doesn't seem quite as fun, but it's for professional work. I'll do silhouette stuff in Photoshop as well.
Yeah, I think it's good that you do that. Like, just, even from my personal experience, like, I obviously haven't been in the industry as long as you, and I've said it on other podcasts, when I was starting out, like, I found it really daunting and intimidating to just see everybody's finished work. So then if you're not in the industry, you think that's what a concept designer or a concept artist does on a job. Like, they're just doing these slick images and just busting them out daily, but it's not like that at all. So, like, I think it's really good that you do that. And do you find too that doing silhouettes like that just really helps you with those proportions and like those big shapes?
100%. I did two. I don't think I'm allowed to say what they are yet. I did two video game jobs last year, and I can think I can't show you, I can't post this work yet, but the, 2 or 3 occasions I did these really quite complicated vehicles or props, and when I go back and look at the silhouette stuff that I show the art directors, I show the designers the silhouettes, and they pick the one they like. The integrity of those tiny black and white shapes carried all the way through. I took that sketch into Blender and just built straight off that sketch. So I'm still quite surprised how many problems you can solve in the first hour if you're keeping it really loose. And the other thing, in terms of the lovely finished artwork that we all get to do, if you're coming in and that's your first day, or even your first hour of the day of a job you've been on for a while, it's really intimidating to try and jump that far, but you can, whatever mindset or however hungover or tired you are, you can do silhouette sketches, and the final product can be as complicated as you like, but you have to start somewhere. So if you can start somewhere simple and fun, that feels like the best possible way to go.
Yeah, and talking about like the integrity and how your designs carry through. So something that sticks in my mind, obviously, is going to be with Alien, because when I jumped on, I think you had already been on the project for like 3 or 4 weeks. Could have been less. And like, I remember looking through the artwork, and the first artwork I saw on the project was your Corbelin sketches. And I remember thinking, like, I was expecting to see whoever's artwork I was going to see. I was just going to expect to see, like I mentioned, like slick renders and illustrations. So I was really taken back that you actually had done these amazing, mix of traditional and probably a bit of digital work over the top of them. And you had different variations, like even cross sections. Things already starting to be figured out. Like, what was the decision, or why was the decision that you wanted to go down that route as opposed to start blocking something out in 3D on that job?
I think, thankfully, how lucky we got with Fede. He gets it, and he's happy to look at that kind of stuff. It's a gamble with a new director. If you don't know what they want to see, they might just want to see good stuff out of the gate, which that's not as fun. But I think talking to Naaman, our production designer, talking to Fede, they wanted that 1979 Alien look. And if you want to be a method actor about it, and if you want to work like they did, you have to think a bit more like Ron Cobb, think about what they had available to them. And to some degree, design is led by the tools you use. So had I gone straight into 3D, I may have done something a bit too contemporary. So I thought, I can't spend the whole job on paper. That won't fly. And nor would it be helpful now. But if I can just spend I think I've spent a week or 2 weeks just on paper. I think method acting is the best sort of pretentious way to think about it. Just trying to do it in a retro style. I think it yielded some really fun. Fede got it. Like, he loved all that approach where the thought of handing those in on a different job would be me getting fired, I imagine.
It's true, isn't it? Because it's really hard, but you have to try and read the room of who you're working with, because the good thing was that, I know that even when we had that big Zoom call together, Fede said, I want to see sketches, which helped. But even just hearing from Naaman too, how Naaman was the first thing he said to me, I think, was I know you can do illustrations, I just don't want to see that. Let's just see some shapes. So it's always refreshing when you get that direction. It just takes that pressure off. But yeah, do you still find, though, even if you're not showing those sketches, like it is a pretty similar process, like on all of your jobs? Like the first thing you do, yeah, what's the first thing you do, I guess, like when you've jumped on a call with a director or production designer, they've briefed you, Matt, we want you to design, this main ship or this main space. Here's some references, here's part of the script. Yeah, what do you do as soon as you get off of that call?
If I have it, like a script read, because say like it's a motorbike or a gun or something. If it's a sci-fi film, it might have a special function or something it needs to do. The same with a set. You need to know how many doors, windows, what the action is. So you're not just designing a cool space. It has to be functional to the script and the story. So kind of assuming you have your shopping list of what it needs to do. So the Kubilin in Alien, it had to have a cockpit, cargo bay, an airlock, has to land and take off, it has to have that big skip, sand hopper underneath. So you have to sort of list everything it needs to do, and the same with the prop. Just trying to think of the props I did on that film, but the more you list, you kind of eliminate the blue sky phase a bit. And I find blue sky work is a bit of a waste of time. Like, it's fun, but the more you can start to funnel things down to what it needs to do. So when you're ready to go, when you have all of that set in your head, I always research and make a mood board. Depending on the size of the job, like the Kubilin warranted more research time. A single hand prop, I probably only researched for an hour. Just like I did a cryo, it's like a CO2 cryo gun. Just in an hour, I just find things from Alien that are relevant, real world technology, handholds. It's going to be gripped by a hand, so you don't want to spend ages ergonomically designing the best handhold. There's an industrial handhold that exists. Go and have a look at that. So research, and then I've got a setup here where I just put all my research in front of me, and then you're straight into, I'll do a page of silhouettes, which I may or may not show depending on what you know of the production designer or the director. They might want to see them, they might not. And then I generally pick 3, and I'll block those into a sketch, and that will be my first cut off to showing whoever I'm working with.
That's so, yeah, I love hearing this stuff because like it's very similar to obviously the way that I work, like having that design focused functional mindset. And I think if people do listen to this, like it's just really important to hear, because like it's like we keep saying it, but it's so important. It's not about like the pretty image and what is most important. Like, you're given a brief by somebody that's already thought about a lot of these things, and it's just so important to like what you've done, like whether it's references, like you might even just be writing notes, like literally creating a list of all of these functional and story requirements. Like the design is already, as you're writing these things down, the design is marinating. Like you almost don't need to even overthink it. Like as long as you put those key things in there that the director has listed in a script, like your design is going to be off to a good start. Like I assume
100%. What you just said then is the psychology of getting something approved is not scaring the director. Like Fede, obviously he scripted a long corridor in the ship. He scripted an airlock at one end. There are all these things that if you go off book, you can experiment, but if you go off book too much and you don't listen to what they've asked you to do, then you're probably going to get fired the next time the budget gets assessed, because you've made them scared. And as soon as it's tricky for you and I when you meet a new director and you have to get on their good side. Until you do, walking this tightrope of trying to, like, we're not friends yet. We're not, but you have to prove that you've listened to them, because then they relax, and then you can get away with more after that.
Yeah, exactly right. Like, it sucks, but you have to almost those first couple of weeks on a job, like you just have to put everything you've got into it. Like,
Horrible.
you
It doesn't get
like
any easier. I mean, it does
nah.
a bit, but it's still nerve-wracking every time.
It doesn't matter who you are, what your name is, what jobs you've worked on. Like, they're always, you can kind of see the doubt in their face and in their eyes from the start. And but yeah, then the beautiful thing is, if you have done those lists and you've read the script and you've listened to the references and all of the key points, like, you could be on a job for a long time, and all of a sudden, like you said, they'll just let you off and do almost what you want to do. Like the classic name and Marshall example. Like, for me, like when I was working on Godzilla Kong, like I think I had over 6 months, I had 3 or 4 meetings with him. The rest was just like, Nick, email, can you whip up, let's start working on this. Here's a quick sketch. And it's so good. Like, just somebody having that trust in you, if you have
super
proven
cool.
yourself.
That guy's super cool, especially when, like, you've earned your stripes with him. So, like, he only gets in touch if you need to course correct, or other than that, like, go and do your thing.
Do you, like, talking about sketching and I guess showing silhouettes or the rough stuff, we have to kind of pick and choose who we show that to. Do you also find, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this, like, you almost sometimes don't even want to go too far ahead and show something too polished too early on, like you can scare somebody away, and you're kind of shutting, personally, I think, like you're shutting them off from the collaborative process. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of an example. That happens all the time. That happened maybe a bit on Project Hail Mary, where it was, you don't want the directors to think that maybe you're giving them an fait accompli, where you've done all the work and you haven't included them in on the process. And you have to remember, it's not your project at all. You are always assisting them, because they've done all the battles, they've raised the money, they've developed the script. So it's their project, and you're going to help them make it. So I think when you show them something complete, it's almost like you've been cheating on them behind their back with someone else. And again, that's another thing that can really throw them. But it's these psychological tricks of letting them feel like they've had their fingerprints on there, and they've moved it around in some way. But yeah, you can really put them off. Not everyone. That's the thing. That's the thing we have to deal with all the time. Is you'll get used to doing that with someone else, then the next director will be completely different and want you to work in a different way.
Yeah, you're starting from scratch all the time. And that actually makes me think, like, something I love about your work in particular is actually the way that you present your work. And I know, like, this whole topic's been about kind of sketching and ideation, but the way that you even present, like, your more polished work, I love how you actually still make it feel a lot more sketchy or raw. Like, you will put an effort to put in, like, elevation, a plan, like even a sketched background, like outlines, like, maybe talk through, like, those decisions. Like, do you think it's important to just, sometimes show things, like we we're just talking about, not polished? And I guess, why do you like to include those sorts of drawings on your work?
Yeah, I think it probably comes from earlier in my career, when I was paranoid about not being very good at painting, and I've always considered myself more of a concept designer than a concept artist, because when I was coming into the industry in the mid 2000s, when sort of digital painting was king, and I could do it, but not. I couldn't. I certainly couldn't paint in the way those, the Craig Mullins and all those guys from that, Ryan Church, those guys from that period. And So I always liked Ron Cobb's work, and Sid Mead's work, and there was this kind of crossover between a really nice piece of artwork and a design document. And when you spend time in a movie art department and you look at we don't really have them as much now. The big art director hand drawn elevations and plans, which is now more CAD. But I used to see those when I was coming into the industry, and they were beautiful drawings, but they would go to construction to be costed. But then I'd also hang them on the wall because they were so beautiful. But I always kind of felt I was trying to emulate something from a different period of design. I think it comes from considering myself more of a designer than an artist, and I think it you can, if you don't have time to do a full render of a vehicle or a prop, you don't have time to do textures and all the details. If you start sketching over the top, you can give it that looseness and that energy of a sketch, and you're kind of bringing the audience in if you notate it and you put arrows and I know you do that with your interiors. I feel like you're kind of bringing your client, whoever that is, you're bringing them into the process, and you're saying we're not done. We're not. If you don't like this, we are still malleable and we can move stuff around.
Yeah, that's such a good point. And it makes me think, like, because, we're always thinking, like, we're paranoid as we're talking off screen, about our future, like what role in the future is there for a concept artist or a designer. But then, we hear things like this and like talking about how people respond to, the sketches, the annotations, the drawing over things. And in my experience, and it sounds like you too, like it always goes down really well. And I don't know, maybe that is like a key thing to show your value and show why you're still valuable, because I don't know, if somebody's pumping out like polished AI renders like all the time, like I don't know, like what value does that have in the collaborative process? You're just going to pump out more realistic looking things, and it, I don't know, might become quite mundane or repetitive. But there's just something nice about annotating and sketching, sending it to some, your production designer. Hey, what are you thinking? Even writing down on the drawing. I've seen you've done that too. Like, what do you think about this? Maybe we could put this here, or should this look like that? And I even had on the most recent job I was on, a production designer actually ask me, can I do a drawing for his presentation to the studio with annotations on it, because he likes how I did those. And because it's not going to scare off as well the people at the top. It, like you said, it invites them in. So yeah, that's really good to hear, like from yourself as well. And I guess I wanted to ask you then, so if you couldn't draw by hand or sketch, like how do you think that would affect your design process?
That is so hard to divorce that from when I was a kid. All I did was draw, and I drew science fiction things as a way to continue my experience of my favorite film or TV show. So it was a huge part of my sort of developing personality as a kid and teenager and then young adult. So it would be like lopping off a limb now. I don't know. I mean, it's different now because sometimes I will just block in Blender or I can't even begin to answer that now. I mean, right now I could probably, if I didn't do any sketching, I'd probably just do research and block in 3D. But even then, if I'm doing a proper vehicle, I'll model for maybe an hour, just volumes, just cubes, spheres, just push it together, make sure it's okay, and then I'll just screenshot and I'll sketch over the top of that. So the sketching happens incrementally through the process.
I was hoping
only because I can model faster if I've done that.
100%. Like that's what I could see you were getting to, and I love hearing that, because that's the same thing with me. Like I've got this book called The Thinking Hand, and it talks about how the brain and the hand are kind of one thing. Like the hand is really just an extension of your brain. And like, sounds like for me and you, that is true. Like there's just something you can't really explain about being able to sketch and write ideas and problem solve by your hand. Don't get me wrong, like I could jump straight into 3D. I do that as well, like you said, and block things out. But exactly like you said, I get stuck and I find myself, oh, it's
Yep.
been half an hour and I've just been spinning
Uh-huh.
around and I haven't
Uh-huh.
made any progress. And it's like the best thing that you can do if you have those skills is to hit screenshot, put it in
Yeah.
Procreate, Photoshop, whatever, and just sketch
Mhm.
over what you need to do next. Like it's just going to keep things efficient. And I think personally, it's just going to make your designs much
Yeah.
better and more resolved anyway.
Do you know, sometimes I'll screenshot, I'll bring it into Photoshop, and I might stay there for 20 seconds, and I just draw. I go, all right, I'm going to do a really lovely sketch. I do 3 lines. I go, oh, no, that's it. That's what you need to do. And I jump straight back into 3D. But there is something about leaving that tension in 3D, which wouldn't, for me, will never be as sort of free as sketching. It might be different for ZBrush artists because that's kind of more
Yeah.
sculptural, but the sometimes it's just like unlocking a door. If I can get it into Photoshop and just a couple of lines, and then it's like the gate's open. You can go back and finish that off now.
Yeah, it's just like a course correction, isn't it? Like even if it's just a couple of lines, like you said, it almost gets rid of that mental block.
Mm.
And like that's something again, like going back to Romulus, like I loved seeing, like obviously we got to keep tabs of each other's work as we uploaded it. Like even when you started blocking out, you'd kind of nailed the exterior of the Corbelin, you moved on to the interior. And again, for me, it was just so refreshing to see you present like grayscale blockouts of the cockpit, and then you would just like sketch in panels and sketch in details and like
Yeah,
imply
yeah,
details. And it was just really cool to see like someone, you know, as experienced as yourself, like, you know, doing that still, not feeling like, you know, you have to just again produce like something so heavily resolved so early on. Like it was just,
yeah,
it's like, gee, maybe I'm on the right track. I've got to if this guy's
yeah.
doing it, maybe I'm doing the right thing.
Well, it's like if you, I mean, I did at art school. I did life drawing and fine art for a while, and if you're doing, you know, this beautiful big painting, um, as a metaphor, the painting being the interior of the ship, you don't go straight in onto this tiny corner of the painting and do everything, do the details, the hand, the wrinkles, all that kind of stuff, and then you look at the white canvas and you think, I have no idea how this all goes together. So you have to, you know, block something in, and that interior was so intimidating because there were cockpit. There's about 5 or 6 different set builds within that one ship. They all have to go together and they all have to fit within a small ship, and both things are going to influence the other. So it's not like the Enterprise or the Death Star where you can have a room inside and it doesn't affect, you know, every single interior affected the exterior design and vice versa. So the only way you can do that is like rough, like, you know, just Lego block this thing in. I mean, Neyman's great, Fede's great. They knew that wasn't going to happen in a week, or 2 or 3 or a month. So I think with all of that stuff, they gave us enough time to breathe, which I would have killed myself otherwise trying to do that quickly. And do it with integrity as well. You're trying to make it look good. You're not just trying to do it. You're trying to do the finish over the top as well.
Yeah, it's like, you know, we know and we've heard stories about, you know, people that show things that are maybe like too rough or not resolved or thought about in too much detail, and it ends pretty badly too. So there's this like this pressure, especially when you're dealing with multiple things like that, having to interconnect and all these different set builds.
Mm-hmm.
But you still made it look so effortlessly in your drawings too, like how everything just lined up perfectly.
I'm sure I told you I made myself so ill on that job because I wanted to do it. I just wanted to do it correctly as well.
Do do you find too, like with your sketching skills and the way your mind works, like that you also use that medium to, I guess, resolve details or like resolve how you might build something in 3D?
Totally. If you know, whilst we're inside spaceships, if you've got so many surfaces to fill, um, I'll often, you know, a corridor, again, I'll screenshot, and then maybe the bulk of the geometry is locked in there, but you're just doing control panels or bulkheads or something like that. Like an airlock, we did a couple of airlocks, and that would always be a case of screenshot the elevation and get back in and just noodle in, you know, shut lines, recesses, and I find I model so much quicker. I do experiment with things in 3D, but if I go in 3D with a plan, even when we're down to nuts and bolt placement and decals and that kind of thing, I haven't really thought about it until we spoke. But sketching and 3D, I feel like they run parallel right up to when you hit render and you go into Photoshop and you do, you know, your final 2D paint over.
Couldn't agree more. And it's almost like you got sketching and 3D and they go back and forth. And then this is me being biased again to, again, maybe more like stuff that we do in the industry and what we're hired to do. But there's, yeah, sketching, the 3D modeling part. But then if you are doing those two things well, you're obviously putting this extra level of thought into detail and resolution, which ends up becoming a successful set build because you've also provided the art department with something that is actually useful and not just slapped together and it doesn't work when you hand over a model to them. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would. And it's really hard, apart from the craftsmanship of trying to help out the art director, who's then going to talk to construction and you know, set deck are also looking at so where you may have placed wires, and set deck, you might be in touch with them because they might be giving you chairs or light fittings. But there is something really nuanced about and you see, you I think unconsciously you see it in some people's work and you don't see it in other people's work. And it's that nuanced craftsmanship where someone's come to that job with a specific background that they have, or a workflow, and I think you can follow it through to the finished set build, and it's just this kind of handcrafted feel that you have on some things and you don't have on others, and it is subjective, but it's definitely there.
Well, it definitely showed in your sets with like Romulus. Like they looked like exactly like your 3D models. Like it was.
You know, we've spoken about that. I don't know where it came from, but Fede or Naaman, there was something about that job where if they liked it on paper, they followed it through to build, even to decals and paint chipping, and I don't know. I'd ask both of them. I don't know how it happened, but it's never happened before, and it hasn't happened since.
It's like we said off the call, it's like the unicorn, isn't it? Like even how we were just included. I couldn't believe how high we were on the credits at the end of the film too. So they obviously really did
such a nice job.
Yeah,
it's just one of those jobs, you know. It's tricky for you because that was one of your sort of early film jobs, and it's a tough. I was thinking, don't get used to having fun because it's not going to be like that again.
That was the end of it. So I guess talking about all of this stuff, ideation, sketching, how it influences your work, I guess my question to kind of slowly start to wrap things up is, do you think sketching or writing by hand has any place in the future with, our industry and what we do, and maybe what does that future look like?
We'll call it a day there. I don't know. It's so hard. I think so. I'm obviously biased. I think right now everything is so up in the air. Everyone's workflow is changing on a weekly basis, and that's almost no exaggeration to say it's changing weekly now. So we just have to wait for things to settle down and see where they go. I don't think I know you can't beat that feeling of physically picking up something, um, having something touched by the human hand, and that's good for your soul in the way that prompting isn't. Prompting is really good for budgets and doing things quickly, but things you care about aren't done quickly. If you're the relationships you've nurtured with partners or family or friends don't happen quickly, and your relationship with artwork and the things you produce doesn't happen quickly because you don't love fast food. It's fine, it's fun, and it's tasty, but it's really, really bad for you. So the obsession with speed concerns me, and I think that will calm down. Um, uh, I don't know. I don't know what your thoughts are, but it's so unpredictable now.
I think that the way you just spoke about that so poetically just summed it up perfectly about how good things don't happen quickly. And I think everything that you've spoken about how to think deeply and in depth about the designs you're doing, the thought and the craftsmanship that you put into things will always have a value. And I think you've just proved
Yeah.
that through everything that you've talked about. And even if we don't see that stuff or show our clients or our directors, that's the stuff I think that is
Yeah.
separating, I guess, average design from really good
Yeah.
design.
Yeah.
So I think that was, yeah, look, Matt, that was like a perfect little ending and summary there. So I just want to, yeah, say thanks heaps for your time
Ah,
and your wisdom and just getting an insight into your brain and
yeah.
just hearing how, yeah, you start projects. So really appreciate it. I'm going to put all of your links to, all of your social channels in the description. And yeah, thanks so much, man, for sharing your wisdom and
That's
knowledge.
great. We always love chatting. It's always good fun.
Thanks, Matt.
Welcome. Cheers, Nick. Take care.